Alright, so let's get to the Black Coast by Mike Brooks. So it's the first book in the God-Killer Chronicles series, and it was written first published in February 2021. And looking at Goodreads right now, it stands at a clean 4.01, so clean 4, with about 200 reviews and almost 700 ratings. So pretty darn good. So I talked about this cover in my book haul video from, I do believe, like April or something, but I just want to reiterate, isn't this a beautiful cover? It's so wonderful. I love the watercoloring effect on it. The colors in the cover is just chef's kiss. It's so good. And the depth you get from, like, everything just feels on a grand scale. And to me, it just screams adventure book. Like, this screams The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings-esque. We're going on adventure. We might not have fun. Maybe we'll have fun. The Black Coast, it does not sound like we're gonna have fun. But as a reader, I think we're gonna have fun watching some characters be miserable. And also, it makes you wonder, who is this character? Are we gonna pass over this mountain? I don't know what's going on. So it just makes me want to read the book, which is the purpose of the cover. I'm having a decent amount of fun with this book, actually. There are a lot of interesting characters and unique cultures that I haven't really seen much of. But there are also aspects of the book I'm not a huge fan of. So we'll start there, because then we end the part in a good note, and that's always what we want. So it's really difficult to read a book where almost everybody talks about themselves in third person. Especially the prologue, because it caught me off guard, and I had to read it a couple of times. I think I've gotten used to it, but do be aware that some point one of the lords will just go, "This man," and then he just means me. And it's really, really off-putting in the beginning. I mean, it adds some flavor to the world that I get what he's going for, Brooks. It's going for this more like, the characters are not mentioned themselves, they're trying to be others, and they're trying to make the culture seem unique and all that. It's just, I don't think it's working, man. So, but, I mean, you get used to it, so it's not a deal breaker. The book follows a lot of different characters, as many books do. We have multiple POVs. And I won't be discussing all the characters at all the time, but I will be discussing, like, some of them, since some characters share the same plot, and sometimes I just don't have much to talk about. And to be honest, I only want to talk about things I have an opinion on, because why would you be here? So if I didn't mention a plot or a character or the plot, then it's probably just because the plot or the character didn't generate any emotions from me, and that's how we'll be going. So let's start with my least favorite plots. I really don't like Jaya's story. It doesn't feel unique. The thief girl who can barely scrape by is usually a favorite archetype of mine. I love a good story with a thief who lives on the street and just has to rise up, overcome the odds, an underdog story. Who doesn't like that? But I think Brooks is playing it a little safe with her, and not a lot is happening. It feels like a very generic storyline. The culture is cool with all the different pronouns, but if he doesn't tell me if it's high male, low male, or whatever it's called, I have no idea. The God King's sister story, what's her name? Tila or something? She has two names. Tila is one of them, I think. I have no idea where it goes, and I'm not really interested. It feels like a shame to have read 150 pages, and one of your stories haven't really started. Alright, Sana Damon story. Oof. Just like the cover, chef's kiss, so fucking good. I mean, if that was the only plot in this book, I would love it. I can't wait to see where this story goes. I think the idea of raiders and the usual offers suddenly having to live together, and finally, and also just the entire idea we're gonna see a lot of clash of culture, and you're gonna see I'm gonna get back to that a lot later in this review, but that's gonna be so fun, and to me, such a unique idea. And then the final thing I want to talk about, them dragons though. Where are they? Where are my dragons? He keeps talking about the dragons in this book, but I can't find any dragons. Where are the dragons? Hope I picked the mic. So far the only thing we've seen is like sea serpents. I want the dragons. Give me the dragons. I want them. I like dragons. This is so good. I love the sun, like the idea that the sun is just not giving a shit about anything. And it isn't even like a traditional I give no shit, but I don't get what you're trying to say. Why are you making it more complicated than it should be type of mentality? I don't know. I just think that's so fun, and it's so different from the I don't care to why don't you just do this? And she's just genuinely confused. And alright, talking about the dragons. I got my dragons! The dragons! But they're just like dogs and horses. I mean, that's cool. But what he did with dragons, just replace basically all animals with dragons. Like, you have grazing dragons, you have meat-eating dragons, you know. It's just, you know, medieval story, medieval army, but with dragons instead of horses, instead of dogs. And it's really cool. It adds 0 to the base storyline. The Sana and raising a dragon could be Sana and raising a puppy. It would give the exact same result. It's just, dragons are cool. And I love it. And there's no need for it. So, let's get to the story parts I dislike. So, Tila, Rickard, and Jaya. I didn't talk about Rickard before, because I didn't feel like it, because I don't like him. And now I'm going to talk about him, because I don't like him. So Tila, Rickard, and Jaya's parts are all either boring or mediocre at best. Rickard is literally bad. I just want him to die. He's just too generic, and I'm going to call it now. He's the main villain of this storyline, and I hate it. And there's no personality to him other than the golden approved of me. I must be a demigod or whatever. I hate it. It's just bland. Tila and Jaya, kinda too generic for me. In any other story, I actually think it would have been well. You see this genericness from Jaya in books like Brenwick's, what's it called? Not the Lightbringers, it's the older one he did, the trilogy he did. I don't remember its name right now. It's kind of bland, it's generic, but it's not bad. But Brooks has just raised the bar so much with the Sana, Damon, and Sana. Oh god, that's gonna be annoying. Plot so high that the others are just not enough. Alright, something. Given it's actual Pride Month when I'm recording this, that's kind of fun. Kind of a fun time, because I want to talk about representation. So, usually, when you talk about representation in stories like this, huge amount of stories, a lot of things, it's usually people go, oh, if it doesn't add anything to the character, why have it there? If the person is gay but it isn't used for anything, why have it? Why mention it? And I'm guilty of doing that. I have done that. And I think Brooks is challenging it in a different way, because he just goes, well, what if it doesn't matter if they're gay? Why does a gay person need, or a bisexual person, need to be justified? Why can't a person just be gay to be gay? Why can't it only work like that for straight people? And I think that's really, really fun. And he also uses it, like, it's a cultural thing, a world building thing, and he uses it for I wouldn't call it a minor plot line, but it's not the main plot, and that is the Chorskans, I hope I pronounced that correctly, doesn't like gay people. And I don't think it's an argument for homophobia. I actually think it's an argument for survival. I think what you could argue for Brooks is trying to say is that some cultures might just be against the bisexual people and gay people, not because of that particular, at least not originally, but just of survival. If you're a tribe and you don't want to be made into another part of another tribe, you your neighboring tribe to take over. You're gonna need kids and so on to take care of the old and to hunt and fight and all that. You don't have time or, I guess, resources you can call, survival resources? People. You don't have people enough for gay people to really be a thing. Or bisexuals, you could argue, but a bisexual could go, I'm into both, but I prefer men, and I'm a man. You see the problem? Then suddenly you might have, let's say, 50 people, and if just 5 of those are gay, just to pick a number, that means, 10% of the tribe is gay. That's gonna lower the amount of survival. And I think that's how the Tusken started out, with it just being survival. And then through generation of go, don't be gay, don't be bi, don't be gay, don't be bi. It just goes into being, what's called like a type of homophobia that just stems from we need to survive. So I think that's really cool, but I also think it's really cool that he just challenges the notion by going, well, what if somebody is gay? Why does it matter? Person is gay, move on. Anyways, that was my little ramble. Let's move on to the next part. Let's get back to something that's not so rambly. It's pretty much more of section 2, really. It's just more cultural clash, and more of the bland storylines too. Doesn't mean I dislike this. I love this book. I love it so far. I think the best part of the book is all the cultural clashes. And for like here, you could remove Tila, Jaya, Rickard, all those storylines, and just make cultural clash after all that. And I'll be totally fine with just, everyday Black Creek, how they're gonna solve the culture. And then also festivals. I love the festivals. Speaking of it, the Festival of Life sequence was... I loved it. You could really feel the borders between the Tuscans and the Black Creek people is starting to come down, even though they don't understand each other. And my favorite little scene that happened was when Sana was going to arm wrestle, and the Naridan judge actually called out a victory in her language. It shows what naturally happens in the real world too, and that is languages mix. We see it all the time. So here in Denmark we have many words from the English language we use instead of our own, because we're so interconnected. You'll see a lot of people in Denmark use like instead of, I don't know, the Danish equivalent would be like synes godt om, I suppose, I don't know. And stuff like that, and it's kind of funny. And we also have a lot from esports and gaming that bleeds in and internet culture. But even on a lower scale, smaller scale, we can see that in border areas between countries, you have Denmark and you have Germany, and the people in this like border area almost speak their own language because it's just a mix of Danish and German, and it's kind of like the third language of Denmark and Germany. I don't know how to say it. But Brooks is showing this really well, because if you spend a lot of time together in an area where they speak another language, you're going to pick up some of their words or phrases, and they're going to pick up some of yours, because that's how we work. And we will probably later in this book see more Naridians use Tchaikovsky expressions that convey a mood or feeling better than what their language can, and vice versa. And the first thing we'll probably learn is the Tchaikovsky word for witches, because the Black Creek people call it witches, but the Tchaikovsky is like, no, it's not what it is. They're like healers, what they call it, prophets, priests, and all of that stuff combined. And in Naridian they're just called witches because they don't have a good word for that. So let's talk about some other stuff. Most of all the other things could really be cut, and I would not mind it at all. The Rickard part is still not interesting at all. When they were attacked by that sea monster, I actually hoped he would die, because I think it would make the storyline with Golden more interesting. Because suddenly, what is he gonna do now? His mission, he didn't even get to the land. And that's kind of the problem with working with multiple POVs. Not every POV is going to be interesting. However, a POV I did like, even though it was short, was the Southern Marshall scene. And I know it was more to show us what was happening, but I was genuinely interested to see how he was going to react to the Black Creek Choskan mix. And so, alright, let's get to the final thing before we get to the final part of the book. In my opinion, you shouldn't add more characters now. I think the break-in scene wasn't handled very well. It felt out of place. It took me too long to figure out it was part of the Jaya storyline and not a new storyline. And I still don't care for that storyline, and it doesn't help that I can't tell right away what storyline it is. So yeah, I mean, it's kinda annoying, but I can't like it all. I love that duo. Normally when you would do a big duel like that with a lot of on the line and all that stuff, you want to get into the head of at least one of the duelists. Either you want to get into the head of Damon's dad or Damon himself, but we didn't get that. We got it from Sana's POV, so we have the two duelists go do, battle, and then we have Sana watching it, trying to understand what's going on. And by making it from Sana's POV, we get more feeling of fear and dread that the people were actually feeling, at least those who understand what was going on. And I think that was a very, very bold move by Brooks. Because, it could also have gone the other way. It could also have been like Sana was watching and just telling us what was happening, and her going, "Oh, I'm scared. What if my husband that I only married because political reasons dies, and then we're doomed?" But Brooks still made the duel interesting, still made that in focus, just framed it around Sana's thoughts, and that was so good. Now, Jaya's storyline is finally also picking up speed, and it is getting interesting. It's just too late. Should have done that in the previous section. I guess it's like a sequel baiting, even though this book doesn't need it. On the other hand, if Joy's part had picked up earlier, it might have taken too much from the main story. But still, probably just a bit more of in the previous section. I don't know. Now, the storm on Castle Black Creek was really, really engaging, really exciting. I actually thought, because the way it was framed, that Damon died. And I know that sounds weird. You're like, oh, how can you think Damon died? He's one of the main characters. Well, Brooks, the way he's writing, just strikes me as the type of guy that would kill off characters, kind of like George R. R. Martin. He didn't do it. I don't mind that. I think it was still amazing. And, Rickard dying was unironically one of the best things in the book. And then the entire scene with them trying to convince the Southern Marshal not to, give them problems, where Damon's brother gone into looking at the laws, how they work, arguing that, since he hasn't blood-related Damon, and then his dad just saying he's no longer part of the family is enough for then it wasn't an attack on family, and there's just Damon protecting his wife, and also it's just so good. It adds a lot of world building, and it's such a neat way of writing out. You might call it a cop-out. I don't think so. I think it's a very logical way this world works. You could argue that some of the things should probably be established earlier. I'm not gonna disagree on that. I just think it was actually handled really well. Next part. Let's get to the conclusion. It's an excellent book. What can I say? There's a lot of focus on culture, history, and how to learn to understand people you would normally hate. And I think it's done as perfectly as possible. I think it sets up a great storyline. It sets up a wonderful world. It kind of fails at selling some of its character storylines, but I think that's okay, because they are secondary stories. Now, I cannot give this book my highest remarks. Well, story-wise I can, but overall I can't, because of the cover. It's a beautiful cover, as I described. I love it. I think it's gorgeous, just for the wrong book. Having read the book now, I can say it's not a cover for this book. And why do I say that? Because, as I said, this reminds me of an adventure book, like The Lord of the Rings or whatever. This is not an adventure book. This is more like a Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones, as most people know it as. It's more of a drama, a slower paced book. And this just sends the wrong vibes. Maybe it fits better in for the sequel, I don't know, but for the first book here, no. So, yeah, fix the cover to match the story, but otherwise I can only tell you, go read the book right now. It's amazing, and I can only recommend it. So yes, you should read this book. Sometimes I worry I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am. The philosophers assure me that this is the time, the signs have been met, but I still wonder if they're the wrong man. So many people depend on me. They say I will hold the future of the entire world in my arms. What would they think if they knew that their champion, the hero of the ages, the savior, doubted himself? Perhaps they wouldn't be shocked at all. In a way, this is what worries me the most. Maybe in their hearts they wonder, just as I do, when they see me. Do they see a liar?